What is going on, bros? 'Tis I, T-Shroom, here to bring you all the latest in the crypto TradFi market update. We're going to be getting into volatility. We're getting into an indicator that looks like it's almost broken. Crux has got some interesting news coming in from China, and we're going to be hearing about the Doge father and his ambitions and how the market is responding to them. We're going to get into all of it on the other side of the intro. Let's get it. All right, here we are. How we doing, Crux? Monday morning.
So off to a little rough start, a little rough patch. During the pre-show, I did bite into a protein bar, and I lost a tooth. So I did have a root canal and I have a crown, but Crux is down one tooth. And also I've had allergies, and it's kind of funny. I just put a cough drop in. I was just telling everyone I'm just going to keep my cough drop where my tooth used to be, and that's how we're going to do this stream.
That's right. Well, yeah.
How are you doing, T-Stream?
I'm doing better than I deserve, Crux. I really am. And I have actually, I'm winning. I have lost 0 teeth today, so that's really, really good. And I'm bullish on continuing to be in the lead on that. Let's go ahead and jump into the crypto bubbles here. Dogecoin is actually quite a bit ahead here, up 6.7%, and nothing is touching it. In fact, the next highest is actually ENA, up 5.8. So Dogecoin getting a nice bid, and we're going to talk about why that is here in just a second. We got to look at the Bitcoin charts. Bitcoin here on the 1 hour looking volatile. I'll go ahead and show you all here on the hyperwave here from LuxAlgo Oscillator Matrix. You can see that there has been quite a bit of back and forth here in just a short amount of time. Jumping out to the daily charts here for Bitcoin, I want to just show you all what has been going on, tell the story, and potentially some levels that we could be seeing later on. From the highs that Bitcoin got to last week, we are now at live price down 6.8%. A lot of folks who were going long, going leverage long, were liquidated, and that is very unfortunate. We'll get to that in just a second as well. How low can Bitcoin go? You might be asking. I have some levels drawn here. I think that in the short term, we could potentially get to, by the short term, I mean potentially by noon today, we could see a $67,300 Bitcoin. Before the election, though, there could be quite a bit more volatility, as we're about to see in this episode. There's a lot of volatility metrics that are pushing higher. We could potentially see this monthly level down here of 64,800. When I say monthly, that means that in the previous cycle, monthly candlesticks closed around this level, okay? And then also at 64,968. So right around 65 is what I expect us to get to in terms of extreme volatility moving into the decision tomorrow from the election. But then also remember, we have the Fed rate policy decision tomorrow on the 7th, right? So it's a twofer this week. It's going to be one hit and then another hit. Can the market withstand this level of volatility? We're going to see. But looking at the oscillator matrix here for the daily chart, we can see that it's actually the bears that look to be steering the market right now. We've put in a lower high here on the momentum, as well as a negative money flow here. Negative and moving in the wrong direction money flow, I should say. Taking a look at the MACD, we do see something similar, and this pretty unique reversal that I've been pointing out last week did not play out. So it did not play out. The gravity of the elections and everything around that was just too strong, and instead of getting a huge burst higher and a breakout of all-time highs, we rounded over, and it just kind of shows uncertainty and an unwillingness to allocate to Bitcoin in a really, really big way. So that's ultimately what the charts are saying right now. Crux, what are your thoughts on this market as it stands? What are some levels that you're thinking here? Do you think the levels I brought up are reasonable before we get into the next couple stories?
Yeah, a week ago, I was talking about 69 to 68. Obviously, we broke through there. 65 is starting to look a little enticing. I've seen a couple of people that understand these charts a lot better than I do talking about 63K.
Mm,
The big thing is we are setting in higher highs and higher lows. And as long as we don't break that a lower low, then we should be okay. The next 48 hours, I actually think it's not going to be very volatile. I just think it's the calm before the storm, but I do think November 5th will be a very it'll be a volatile day. I think we're going to react very harshly, but hopefully in a good way.
absolutely, Crux. I'm glad that you mentioned that because on this chart, there's a decent amount of chaos going on. I do have the descending the descending level of what was resistance, all throughout this period here, but is actually now support, and that is so far holding, I would say. Now, on a little bit of a less chaotic chart, I've got these uptrending lines of support showing here that exactly what Crux just said. There's a lot of daylight between these lines of support here, and while it feels bearish, you have to remember it's only really bearish right now in an extreme way because of how high we got in such a short amount of time, right? So what goes up must come down in a lot of cases. And so this is just what you end up getting. But bros, we are usually joined by a bearded wonder, T.A. Tim, and he's going to go much deeper into the charts. If you thought that was deep enough for you, then you have a lot to learn because that was not very much. We go very deep into the charts, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you want to take that next step, if you think you're ready to start trading, start investing, then go ahead and jump down to the links down in the description for Brolux memberships and for our Discord, of which we do have a free Discord too. Let's get into the stories here. Bitcoin slips as Trump's odds plummet, pushing crypto liquidations above 315 million. Let's go ahead and look. Crux, I think that plummets is a little bit too excited of a word, a little bit too much of an exaggeration. What do you think as it's used in that title there from decrypted.co?
Yeah, I think plummeting. Whenever I hear plummeting, I'm thinking like 10-15%. Bitcoin hasn't retraced that hard. Actually, if we look at that total inflows, we'll talk about it here shortly. But over the past 4 weeks or so, we got 20% of the Bitcoin inflows within these ETFs. So I wouldn't say plummeting. One factor may show plummeting, but the other factor is showing that we are still, people are in the background like BlackRock and these larger institutions are actually buying crypto.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, so let's keep moving here. Let me show you all a little bit something else as well, which is plummet appropriate? I don't think that plummet is appropriate because if we take a look here at the poly market charts, you can see that yes, there was a big change, right, from the highs of 67. Dang, that's so high, all the way down to about 56. If we look at real clear, if we look at just the polls, okay, so I'm looking here, the RCP national average. This takes all of the polls or many of the polls and kind of makes an average of them. They're essentially neck and neck, right? And this has been the case for a while. So in the polls, nothing really has changed. In the top battleground states, it's still giving it to Donald Trump, which at the end of the day, that's kind of really what matters. Some folks are even drilling it down and saying Pennsylvania is the one that matters. And as we can see down here, Trump does have a very ever so slight lead of 0.3 in the polls there. However, you have to understand that historically there's a margin of error, sometimes as much as 3%, that is implied with these polls. So just keep that in mind. These are polls, and they're different from betting spreads. If you look at the betting spread, the RCP betting average, it's 56 to 42, okay? And if we double click into that, we can see historically when you average a lot of the betting websites together, you get 56 to 42 right now, which is still a very healthy lead for Donald Trump. And you can see, similar to Polymarket, that he has had a correction in the polls. However, it's still holding strong here. We would call it in the stock market or the crypto market and stock market world. He's found support here at 54. So, Crux, it's too close to call, of course. The polls are saying that it's neck and neck. The betting averages are correcting to the downside for Trump, correcting to the upside for Harris, of course, if you look at it that way. But do you have any indication of who's going to win here? What do you think? What's Crux's take on all this and its effect on markets?
I don't think it really matters what Crux thinks, because Eric Wallen said he placed a bet on Kamala Harris to win, which may actually be one of the best bets I've ever seen, because 7 days ago Trump was up massively. 2 weeks ago, very, very big spread there. But yeah, so it's very interesting. I posted to Twitter yesterday night saying, I'm done looking at poly market as a term of or as a metric of how accurate these things are, because whenever Trump first that event happened a number of months ago, he was up like 70-30 at that point, and it has narrowed. And then a month ago was that completely different opposites. Trump was back in the lead, and it's just very interesting to see how this thing is so close. Whenever we're just 48 hours out. But Paul said something very interesting. He said Harris has a better plan for crypto than Trump. Mark my words. The interesting part is we may not know if she actually does, because she may not actually get that seat. So
it's true. And I do tend to agree with you there, Paul. And we're gonna see a headline here in just a few minutes that is going to agree with you very profusely, and it's going to be very, very bullish for you all. So we do have some hopium 100% baked in to the end of the show, so make sure that you're locked in and you're going to watch till the end. All right, well, betting odds are, in my opinion, a little bit more reliable than the polls. In my opinion, why? Because people are putting their money where their mouth is. They're actually doing what they're saying. At the end of the day, polls, I could go, if someone polls me, I could just completely lie or try to fabricate for one way or another, whether it's 3D chess or just an immature lie, whatever it is. But one area that is telling the story that is very hard to deceive is the bond market. So if we look at the 10-year bond market, stay with me here, we can see that the 10-year yield has pulled back a little bit, right? However, it's not pulled back, in my approximation, to the same degree that poly market has pulled back. So the betting odds have seen a much more dramatic correction than the bond market. But I think the bond market says it all right here, which is that I don't want to hold a U.S. bond when I think that Donald Trump can win and will win, and then I can have all that cash to deploy into the stock market, or all that cash is already deployed into the stock market. Hopefully that makes sense to you. The fact that this hasn't corrected, the fact that we're not back down to 4% yield on the 10-year shows me that the bond market is saying, hey, we don't care what the gamblers are doing over on poly market, and we definitely don't care about the polls over on Real Clear Politics. What we ultimately care about is our bonds, right? And we care about who's going to win, and we think Trump's going to win, and we want to have money to be able to rotate into risk and stay out of fixed income, right? And we know this to be true because where there is an actual decrease in yields, meaning an increase in demand, is here on the 3-month, right? So they're saying, yeah, we don't want to lock our money into U.S. debt for 10 years. However, 3 months will take it. And so there's a rotation into the 3-month, and so those yields are coming down. And if you look at the 6-month, these yields are coming down as well, but they haven't reached their lows here. So I'm doing a lot of bond analysis these days. We usually don't, but the thing is that the bond market, it's very difficult to lie through that. It's very difficult to do a fake movement, because it's very, very big money that's doing that, and that's not the kind of money like hedge funds that manipulate the market. A different way to say it, it's very difficult to manipulate the bond market because there's too much money in it, right? It's the folks that are used to manipulating markets are they're not the same folks who have that much money. All right, all of this is creating volatility. It's creating volatility in the markets. We saw that a little bit here with the Bitcoin TA, a little bit of technical analysis, which, by the way, we'll be getting much deeper into in the 3 p.m. live stream. How do we know that volatility is here, though? Because we're seeing it on the charts. But is it really here? It is. So this is Deribit's volatility index, and we can see that currently the level that we're at of 63.5 at live time is equivalent to a level that we have not seen since July 24th of this year, this level back here. So this is extreme, right? This is causing a lot of volatility, and this is essentially going to continue, in my estimation, at least for the next 48 hours. But then we have the Fed decision on the 7th. So this whole week, I believe, is going to be pretty volatile, even once we have the decision from the U.S. elections, and then we still have to wait on the decision from the Fed on the 7th. And all of that anticipation, all that uncertainty is what is causing volatility. And it's breaking one of our favorite indicators, the fear and greed index, because take a look. It's now not just barely greedy. It is squarely in the greed. And yesterday it was as high as 74 in the greed index. So this doesn't make a lot of sense, considering right now it seems like there's a decent amount of fear in the market. We've seen a pullback. The fear and greed index is a lagging indicator here, Crux, but what are your thoughts on the fear and greed? How can this be accurate, and is the fear and greed index broken?
The fear and greed index is actually one of my favorite indicators in, at least for years like this, the year of Bitcoin's halving. And I use it to DCA. So anytime it goes under 20 on the fear and greed, that's a time of extreme fear. Then that's whenever I'm buying. And I usually just save until each of those opportunities hit. Typically, anywhere between like 3 to 4 times it will happen in a year like this year. But I think the fear and greed, it's a very good indicator. It's a lagging indicator, but it's okay because I'm not a trader. I'm looking to invest, and I want to buy those dips. And if you just look at every single time we've been, 20% or 20 or lower on the fear and greed index, we've done at least a 20% pullback within a Bitcoin cycle. One other thing that I think is important to note, if you want to share my screen, is just a quick historical snapshot on the 5th of November in 2020, where we were at that time. So we're under $16,000 4 years ago, but also at the 1st of November, we're closer to 13,000. And I did talk last time about how November is the most bullish month with an average ROI of 40%. But if I also go to the end of November of last cycle, so 11 months or 3 years, 11 months ago, we have Bitcoin sitting closer to $20,000. So what I think is extremely important about this is we didn't even hit all-time highs last cycle until we got into December. We hit all-time highs this cycle at the end of, or in Q2, I believe. So we are so far ahead of in this cycle that we are actually where we currently need to be right now. So don't fret, I would say just continue to hodl on.
Absolutely. And we have a lot more to get to here, but we will kind of pause here and just, I would just reiterate that, right? We are right where we need to be. Even when we look at the charts, while it feels like there has been losses, Bitcoin is still very aggressively being bought, and it's bullish, right? Are the altcoins keeping pace? They're not, right? And we say on this channel over and over that it's not quite altcoin season. So being over allocated into altcoins, this is Ethereum, is not the best idea for this phase. Now, nibbling on them and having them be a part of your portfolio is smart because you're able to buy low, right? In the more you can get ahead of the market movement, the better, right? But make no mistake, it's Bitcoin that is going to move first here, and that's what's happened every cycle. And so owning Bitcoin makes the most sense here. Owning altcoins increasingly makes the most sense into the future. So having altcoins on your balance sheet makes a ton of sense. Having Bitcoin makes even more sense for where we are in the cycle. Let's keep moving here because there's one coin that makes a lot of people sense and money, and that's Dogecoin here, continuing to pump after this clip. Let's take a look and take a listen.
Essentially, if done right, the X would serve people's financial needs to such a degree that over time it would become, I don't know, maybe half of the global financial system.
Wow.
Or some big number. Okay. I'm not sure what the number is, but pretty big. So it would be by far the biggest sort of financial institution. But like I said, not really in the way that people are used to thinking about banks. Mm-hmm. Just the most efficient database for the thing that is money. Like I said, least amount of fraud. Everything's real time. And if it involves money in any way, it can be dealt with seamlessly on one location.
That is being interpreted by the crypto market is very bullish for Bitcoin and very bullish for Dogecoin specifically. Why? Because he said if it involves money, it will be there, right? And Dogecoin is money. If it can be interpreted as money, it will be there. This is very, very bullish. Crux, what's your take on here? And how much Dogecoin did you buy when you heard this one?
Yeah, so we know, especially as Americans, we're like 50-50. It's a very close race currently. There's a lot of people, a lot of Americans especially, that will not ever go to Twitter. Like, I have a ton of family members that are like, they're completely against Twitter. They're on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Half of the global payments, I think it's a huge stretch, because even China, like, they have WeChat and these other applications that are already built into their design of their society. So I don't know where Elon Musk is really coming, or bringing this kind of data to be, because first of all, Twitter is a social media network. It's not so much an exchange, a medium of exchange, or you can't even have payments currently. I think maybe they released it temporarily, but right now I don't think I can send people Bitcoin through Twitter anymore. That being said, what does he mean by this? Does he expect Twitter to have their own blockchain? Are they going to use another blockchain? There's so many unanswered questions. And I think he's just being so vague. And he's trying to pump this platform that he currently holds, I mean, he owns it. Why not? But I just don't see what the use is, or why we need to rely on a centralized, media network as a medium of exchange.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting take. So you're fading his comments here a little bit. Yeah, I'd say, I'm a believer. Or I'm a big supporter of Elon Musk and everything that he's done, and maybe not every single thing he's done, but for the majority of what he's done has been really, really good. I think there's a reason why there's been a lot of opaque information. There's been a lack of information about what exactly the X finance is going to look like, what it's going to do. I do think, though, with the comments we just heard from Elon, that it is coming, and it is going to be pretty big. And it's probably going to be innovative in the same way that electric cars are innovative in space travel and Neuralink, and initially what PayPal was. It's going to be it's going to take people by surprise, right? And it's going to be something that is going to entice investors and traders even more than what Wall Street already does. And so that's going to, there's a reason why I think they're so tight-lipped about it, and why there hasn't been a lot of information come out about it quite yet. Now, and obviously then the big argument is just don't bet against Elon, right? There's kind of a lot of evidence for that. And Dogecoin is getting a bid. Definitely getting a bid.
In 2020, he released like exclusive shorts that you could buy. They're like real small shorts. Yeah, they're pretty funny. But it was basically just to troll everybody that was shorting the stock in 2020 and got absolutely wrecked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's funny. It's funny. Well, you mentioned WeChat, and China is a growing kind of force in this global market that we're trading in here. Crux, you had mentioned that you had an interesting story on China. Let's go ahead and pull that up now, and let's dive on in.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and read it just so I get right to the point. So this week, China's economy stands on shifting ground, hinging on the U.S. presidential election. Analysts believe that Beijing's upcoming stimulus package could expand significantly depending on who wins. So while China's standing committee of the National People's Congress wraps up in a meeting on Friday, just after the U.S. election results come in, everyone is waiting to see China's economic strategy will adjust to the new American leadership. If Donald Trump takes office, right, it's predicted that China's stimulus package could be 10 to 20% bigger than if Kamala Harris wins. To me, this is a big number, 20% difference if Trump wins. And that's really taken into consideration the tariffs that he's planning on implementing. That being said, we talk so much about the bullishness of Donald Trump coming into office and some of the things that he has for us, but we don't really take into consideration of China's impact on 20%, up to 20% extra stimulus. And we've seen earlier this year, whenever all of the signs were against the United States, unemployment was going up, inflation's going up, it looks like we're about to go into a recession, China just starts printing. stimulus starts coming out, and it essentially saves a lot of our markets. So, and I do personally believe that is why we're at all-time highs in the S&P 500, gold, not so much the Dixie or anything, but we've been doing very well in almost all markets, and I believe it's because China has been carrying the load where the United States hasn't been able to keep up.
Yeah, I think China plays a big role. I think if you look at the amount of stimulus that they're putting out, it is a bit like mind-boggling. However, I think that the Fed cutting 50 basis points has been really, really big. I think Nvidia and other tech companies continuing to do well and print positive returns to shareholders has been good. And just generally, we've been seeing the jobs numbers were kind of rough over the summer, but a lot of the revisions and a lot of the new data we're seeing from the job market does paint a picture where people do have money. Maybe not everybody. There's definitely a large group of impoverished Americans that do not have money to invest. But there are a lot of people who have figured out a way to crack the code and leverage the internet in their favor, whether that be an employee for a company that's doing that, or whether that be business owners. And so, you might be listening to that and hear and say, man, I just got fired, right? Yes, there is definitely a big shift happening, but people are buying risk. They are buying the S&P, like you said, Crux. They are buying, crypto, especially, altcoins. That highlights that people are willing to take risk. Now, they're also buying gold, right? They're also buying gold, but they're not buying bonds, right? So that sends a little bit of a confusing signal to investors, saying why is the market buying gold and not just buying it? They're bidding it to all-time highs when they're not willing to buy the 10-year. And I think that is a shift in what investors are willing to do versus historically. I'll show you guys this chart. I haven't shown yet to anyone else. Hopefully I can find it very quickly here. And that is going to be the Bitcoin, the gold over. Let's see if I can find it here. Actually, we might have to save. I'm going to save this for next time because I'm not finding it here. Yeah, it's not coming up as fast as I thought it would. Oh, I remember where it is now. So this is gold over the Dixie, and I wasn't planning on showing this one quite yet because I don't know how to interpret it, Crux. I don't understand it. Oof. But if you look at the gold over Dixie, right now, like it's been trading extremely predictably. Like these peaks and troughs have been extremely routine. But right now we've seen kind of a break of trend, and it's been moving down. Hasn't like broken through and then been explosive to the downside. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments. What do you think this means? I mean, ultimately, this just means the simplest way, the surface level way to interpret this would be that gold is getting bought more aggressively than the dollar, right? But I do think that it's more complicated than that, and I would love to know, what you all think. So let us know in the chat down below. Crux, you said, China is playing a big role in why investors are willing to rotate into risk right now, citing that the stock market's an all-time high. I think that is a huge reason. I do think there are others. Regardless, it is now time for the Bitcoin hopium part, and we have a lot of headlines here for the hopium. So the first one here is look at these inflows from last week. These were monster inflows. In fact, it was historically the largest 2-day inflows ever, right? So we've seen inflows in one day that were higher back here in March, but we haven't seen 2 days in a row that were this high. And if we toggle to the weekly, we can get a little bit of data as well. You can see that just generally green has become much more dominant here recently. Over the summer, there was definitely a dearth of ETF inflows, but now that has changed, and we're back up above this yellow line here, which is Bitcoin's price, which is kind of an interesting indicator there. Keep moving though. Inflows looking good. 725 billion AUM. Bernstein predicts Bitcoin to hit 200,000 by 2025. Here's the kicker. Regardless of the U.S. election outcome. This is coming out today, and I first saw this headline on kind of a silly website that I don't trust very much, but now it's on Bitcoin Magazine, it's on Watcher.guru, and it is real. Bernstein is coming out and they're saying, hey, look, Kamala Harris, she may win here. There's a possibility that it's close. It's a neck and neck tie, according to the polls, and increasingly according to the betting odds, not according to the bond market, as we saw. But it's increasingly possible that Kamala could take it here. Regardless, we still think this thing, Bitcoin, is going to 200K. Not this year, but next year. So it's a big prediction. It's a bold prediction, but the bullishness doesn't stop there, Crux. Largest European telecom, Deutsche Telekom, to start mining Bitcoin using surplus energy. It's happening here, says Bitcoin Magazine. So very, very bullish. And as we wrap out the show with that bullishness, make sure that you have smashed the like button and that you've subscribed if you're new and you want to stay locked in to what we do here, which is cover crypto markets. Essentially, we also cover how, we talked about the bond market, how traditional markets also affect the crypto markets and opportunities that you can take advantage of in crypto and in TradFi. So that's what we do here. We've got Crux, who is our amazing portfolio guru. And if you want to book a portfolio audit with him and go through, we didn't flex much of our understanding and knowledge of altcoins in this episode, but that's because right now it's very volatile and Bitcoin's kind of stealing the show. But if you want to get a crypto audit, a crypto portfolio audit, if you're sitting there thinking, man, am I really getting everything that I can out of these markets? Go ahead and check out our BroLux memberships, and you can book a portfolio audit. And if you want it to be with me or if you want it to be with Tim, you can request that as well. But to be honest with you, you're in excellent hands with Crux. So, Crux, I want to just throw it back over to you as we close. Anything else that bros should be having on their minds in this extremely volatile, potentially very emotional week for traders and investors?
Yeah, I'd just say don't fret. I showed the historical snapshot of 2020 where we were at 4 years ago, and Bitcoin has pumped. 8 years ago, whenever Donald Trump, came into office, the same thing happened. So it doesn't really matter. We've had a Democrat and a Republican. I do think Trump personally is the better of the two in terms of how the markets will react. But I don't think it's that big of a deal in the long run. I think crypto is going to be crypto. Yeah, and that Deutsche Bank article that you just threw up there kind of gave me like 2022 PTSD.
Deutsche Telekom.
Yeah. So it's a different entity, I guess, but just the word Deutsche.
Deutsche Telekom. Yeah, Deutsche Telekom
is banks were collapsing.
It's like Verizon or AT&T of Europe. It's a big telecom.
Okay.
Yeah. So they've got, when you're a big operator, especially of electronic equipment like satellites and cell towers, you have a lot of excess energy because you have a lot of operational capacity. And so it makes a lot of sense for those type of organizations to mine Bitcoin. There's so many different ways to learn, get involved, invest, profit from crypto. It's just the beginning. It really is. I'm very convinced that we're still in the first, second, maybe third inning of crypto, of blockchain being deployed. It's really the next step in encryption technology. And if you know anything about that, encryption technology, there's a reason why it was top secret CIA technology for like 30 years before it became leaked essentially to the private market. And it was used to create better IT security, right? And a lot of other things. Well, now, Satoshi got his hands on it and created Bitcoin. And from there, it's created kind of a Web 3.0 explosion of possible use cases with blockchain as well. And we're just at the very beginning, in my humble opinion. So it's why I invest in altcoins. It's why I invest in Bitcoin especially. And I'm bullish. I'm bullish into this week. We're going to see there's so much. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in. We'll get Tim's take on all of this and more. But Crux, it's been an absolute pleasure. If you're not subscribed to our channel, make sure that you subscribe so that whenever we put out videos, sometimes they're more urgent than others. Like today was a somewhat urgent. If you're thinking about trading this week, you may think twice, seeing how much volatility is on the rise. But if you are in love with this content as much as we are, go ahead and smash the like button, and we will see you all around 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Adios.
Peace.